Welcome back, everybody. Today you have Ryan and I, and we're talking to you about Federations, which is a game we just played. So we're going to give you a little taste of what our play was like and what we thought of the game.
Yeah, this is a worker placement game from Eagle Griffin, and I hesitate almost to call it a worker placement game because there are so many layers. But at its heart, that is what it is. So I'm going to give you just a very quick rundown of what the game plays like so that when we talk about it, you'll kind of understand. But this board here is filled with a bunch of worker placement spots in the middle, and they're divided into two sections. These are basically two different sections of the Senate. And as you're placing your workers down, they have a value. They're contributing to voting on one of these two mandates. Not only that, you can also place your workers on a checkmark side, which is funding to fund some in-game scoring projects. And there's just some bonuses you can get across rows as well. That's all on top of the actual action. So when I say that there are layers to this game, I really mean
layers on layers on layers.
So right, and a lot of those actions are going to take you out to these different planets that you see surrounding this main board. These are kind of like little mini games. You've got some tracks you're moving up, you've got some trading you can do, some people you can recruit, some planets to explore, and then some technologies you can gain. And based on which action you're taking, you're going to be interacting with that different planet, or you're taking some actions that will help you upgrade your player board, either by placing out these mission marks on certain missions, by placing your ships, sending your ships out to those missions to get bonuses, collecting different discs from these different planets. So there is a lot that I would say is going on, but it does all come back to that central concept of just placing the worker.
Yeah, and I mean, like, when you think about that, you're like, okay, it's just a worker placement game. But like Ryan said, like, if I'm going right now to try to place my worker, this worker, I have workers that are between 1 and 3 value.
Yeah.
And so I can choose, like, all right, I know for a fact I want to take the blue action. So I'm going to go there. But do I do it with the 3 value, hoping that, like, maybe I've invested a lot in green and I want green to score? Or maybe I haven't and I want yellow to score, so I'll actually do it on the other side. The other side, not only does it help fund the actual goal at the end, where I might get quite a bit more scoring if I can fund it all the way, but also I get to put a check mark on my board, which means that at the end of my turn, I could potentially, if I have a ship, place on there and get to take an extra action to combo this together. And all of that to say, like, I'm also even looking at who has the most votes in a place to get endgame scoring or to get the row scoring at the end too. There's so much that goes into every little action, and I would say a big part of it for me too was that people can block you, right? It's like any worker placement, but
blocking. Well, when you think about all those different facets, right? So in a normal worker placement game, you have to worry, somebody might take the action that I'm going to take.
Yeah.
And some of these actions are duplicated, but it might be duplicated on the other side.
Yes, exactly.
On the side of the Senate that has the voting mandate that you don't want. And a lot of these voting mandates are going to score points for how far you are in each one of these or how much you've done in each one of these planets. So you might end up with a vote that is in a planet that you've done nothing for, but the action you want to take is on that side.
Exactly.
It's very tough, and players can see that. And there is like a small element of negotiation as far as like, maybe Emily and I both were going heavy on the green, and David was the only one doing anything with yellow, and we do not want him
to go into
yellow. So we're like, oh, well, if you place 3 over here, I can place 2 over here.
Exactly.
And then meanwhile, David's over there like, no, why do you guys do it? I need these points. And so I think that element of negotiation, or even trying to fund these in-game scoring projects and saying, look, we're 2 away. If you and I both place our check marks here, we will fund this project, and then we'll get to score it at the end of the game. And again, all those projects tie into the different planets. So if Emily and I are both doing a lot of purple, we have a vested interest together in having that project score.
Well, and I think a lot of it too is there's a lot of scoring. You can score a lot of points, but not everything scores. And what's really critical is you might go heavy into one thing, but if you don't get it all the way funded, it's not going to score.
Right.
And so then you're kind of like, oh my God, I spent the whole game going to this one planet. Nobody helped me fund it, and now it's not scoring anything at the end. So you're kind of like balancing all these things together at once.
And you really are. And though there is blocking, and I have said that, and I will stand by that, there are still other ways to get to do some of the actions you're missing, which is something I actually appreciate. If people block both of those, well, maybe you can place one of your check marks. A lot of these actions that are out here are also on your player board, so you can place a check mark, get your ship out there, still find a way to possibly do that action.
You did that so much. You did like almost all of your
I did.
ships,
I placed all of my ships, but when you sit down, that was kind of the strategy I was going to do, because this is one aspect of the game I don't think nobody can mess with this.
Sure.
It's like I don't have to rely on finding those, because it becomes very clear quickly that you're just not going to be able to plan ahead. You might have a vague strategy that you want to do, but you're not really going to be able to commit to that, which I think kind of brings us to the next part of this. We like to talk about who this game is for and who it's not for. So I think it's definitely for the player that enjoys finding those and being able to pivot, because as you play the game, you might be going, like Emily said, heavy on one planet, and then when you realize that that planet is never going to fund, you're never going to score it, you've got to pivot and you've got to look and see, what are the other players doing? I at least want to get a little bit of a piece of that, which is very interesting.
Well, and it's very puzzly because, like we said, there is some blocking there. So you're trying to see, like, okay, Ryan took the action I wanted. Someone else took the other action I wanted. What am I going to do now? And there are little ways where you can, like, maximize things and say, like, okay, I can do this here, which will get me up here, and then I can do an extra mission to actually still do what I was trying to do, but maybe not in the most optimal way. So there's a lot of, like, it's definitely for somebody who likes that layering approach, right? Where there's a little bit of comboing, just enough flexibility so you feel like, ooh, I could do this, but not so much that it's trivial. It's still very challenging.
It's still very challenging, yeah. And that layered approach to the worker placement brings so many decisions to make, because you might, oh, look, the purple action's free. I definitely want the purple action. Oh, but I don't want this to fund because I've got nothing down there. And I don't want this to pass because I'm not going to score points. So maybe I just don't do the purple action.
Yes.
Or you just kind of have to suck it up and say, well, I'm giving somebody else a lot of points, but I really want to do this action. That to me is maybe one of the most interesting parts about this game.
Yeah, I really like that part of it. Though I would say then who it's not for, I do think that this is a game where if you like those kind of games where you can make a lot of thoughtful decision making, but you want to be able to kind of plan out your game and say like, oh, I looked at the board, you told me the rules, and I said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go for this. It's not really going to work out in your favor, right? Like, you have to be able to pivot. There's things in the game too that as you go through the planets, things are revealed later on. So like you have new workers that are revealed, you have new things that are flipped over. And if you were thinking to yourself, oh, I'm just going to do this, but then like Ryan goes there and something gets revealed, you're like, oh my God, that's
I
so
really need that ally, or I really need that particular token. This whole blue planet, there's so much that's happening with all these different planets, but these blue planets like increase the value. So if you're short on a vote and you're thinking, oh, I can't make that vote, and then somebody reveals, oh, there's a 4 or 5, I could go get that. There's even a 6 out there that you might be able to grab and place with your worker to sway the votes to you. There's even little helper dice that can sway the votes. So there is always that way, but every player at the game is going to be blocking you.
Yeah.
If you are close to getting the thing you need, or if you are finding yourself climbing ahead on the player board, people are going to pivot to not do the thing you're doing because they don't want to help you fund that project anymore. They don't want to help you with their votes by voting in the thing that's going to score you the points. They're going to start actively working against you. And while I think that's fun, some players might not enjoy that.
Well, and even like there's the reveal too, from round to round, what's going to score, what possibly could score is going to change.
Yeah.
So you might also feel like, well, if I had known that green was going to be the last thing to score, I would have gone for it. You're not going to know. So you can't plan ahead for that. And if you're somebody who likes to plan that thoroughly, this might not really hit the right note with you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point too. The way that these come out, the order these come out, because obviously the later in the game ones that come out, especially the last turn out of 5 rounds, you're going to be so much farther progressed on that planet. And each one of these planets progresses in a different way. Some of them are just tracks, some of them are just calculating influence, whatever. You might have, a situation where you're getting like 14 points on the last turn, and these become very valuable. And a 14-point swing can win this game.
It can be very huge.
So you might find yourself being like, come on, Emily. Like,
please reveal the right thing here.
Yeah, you get a little extra points too if you help me fund this green one. And I like that a lot. It does feel maybe a little random sometimes, but it's all within a constraint of like, you kind of know.
You know it's possible.
You know it's possible. It's not like something's going to come out of left field and be like, what? I had no idea that was going to happen.
Right.
Like even these tokens that come out, you kind of have an idea of what
they follow a pattern, right? So you can kind of see what it can be. But still, to your point, like if these just happen to be things that I haven't paid for or been going down all game, well, that's kind of my luck at the end. I have to find ways to get points somewhere else.
Yeah, so before we go though, your final thoughts. Did it come together for you in a satisfying way?
It did. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the fact that these weren't just tracks for each of the different planets. They were really like a little mini game. And they kind of had crossover with each other in interesting ways where this game benefits if you can do one specific thing or a couple things really well, but I wanted to do everything. I just kept being like, but that's cool and that's interesting, and I like want to do a little bit of all of it.
Well, I do like that you get rewarded. You get these tokens. If you can get up to at least like 4 influence in each thing, you get some tokens. if you collect all the tokens, you can get some extra points. So if you do a little bit of everything, you're good. It kind of supplements that by giving you this track, but you don't have to. Like Emily didn't do everything, and we were very close by the end of the game. So like you can just focus on 1 or 2 tracks, play the mini games that are the most fun for you to play. I really like the technology stuff, especially any game that lets you invest in income.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, let me collect these things every phase. That's a pretty fun experience as well.
So how did you feel about it overall?
I mean, I really enjoyed it. It's going to take me a couple plays, I think, before you can really get into
what's the ideal strategy.
What's the ideal strategy? How to optimize those decisions? Because I know for myself, I wasted a lot of my votes by like I was going heavy. Like, let me get the 3 vote out first and like make a claim and say I'm going 3. But then that gives everyone at the table the chance.
So much information too.
So much information, and then there's the whole thing of like, well, do I even really want to worry about votes, or do I want to do all check marks so that I can make sure that the things I need to fund? Because in our game, only 2 of them or 3 of them funded out of I think the possible 7 things. There's even like a big project here that didn't even come close.
Right.
So I think if as you play this game with different players, they're going to play differently, and you're going to have different amounts of scoring. And that's, to me, is very interesting. Brings a lot of replayability. Not only that, but a lot of like the technologies and things can change out from game to game as well.
Exactly.
So every time you play, you are going to be playing a very different or having a very different experience.
And that's Federations. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them down for the comments. We'll answer whatever you can. Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.
Bye.